Like pray for the focus, pray for the strength to go to my mat if that's my place, or go to the edge of the river, or go where I can draw the mind into my heart and have this quality of returning, like to awaken that memory of who I am. Not all those things, though that's true that they're there and I can bear witness to them, but that's not my essence. I might have problems in my life, but that's not who I am. I might have difficulties, but that's not who I am. But if I identify with my problems and my difficulties, they become very large. So yoga is
Mm-hmm.
saying, hey, you have a way that all these things are going on. You can take refuge in these practices. Let them guide you. Hold hands with these practices, and they will give you the courage to keep going on your path,
Mm-hmm.
one step, one breath at a time.
Welcome to a Curious Yogi podcast. I'm your host, Bobby, joined by living masters and awakening friends. I'm so delighted you're here. Now let's get curious. Welcome back to A Curious Yogi, friends. I am so happy to be sitting here with you today, back in my cute little Malmo apartment, feeling so much gratitude and appreciation for Sweden, for India, for Canada, for the privilege, for the freedom that I have to be able to travel freely, to be able to work where I want, to be able to live how I want. And I just really want to acknowledge and recognize that is rare in this world of division and separation and oppression. So just feeling thankful to be in this little corner of the internet with you, sharing all things sadhana, diving deep into traditional yoga, meditation, philosophy, while also keeping my feet, our feet, your feet on the ground and the heart's full of joy while we do this deep work of sadhana and live in this divided world. And take the practice seriously, but not take ourselves too seriously. And speaking of diving deep, today's episode is nothing short of epic, diving so deep but also with so much lightheartedness and joy. I am completely honored and full of just total delight to bring you a conversation with a true teacher's teacher, the legendary Dana Flynn. Dana has over 3 decades of practice, and she is just a walking, breathing powerhouse of raw energy, inspiration, and so much lived spiritual experience. We sit down and discuss her wild and beautiful journey from being a spirited party girl, that was me also, to owning a bar. I didn't own a bar, but I worked in many bars and I frequented many bars, to then meeting her teacher in India and surrendering to the deeper path of yoga. We talk about how physical practices like asana and pranayama open the doorways to the subtle body, and how we can include everything, our grief, our joy, our sobriety, our everyday lives into our sadhana. So you're going to want to soak in every single second of this one, I promise. But before we jump into this conversation with Dana, I have a few exciting announcements and ways for us to stay connected and practice together this summer. So I have the Gita reading and study group starting on Monday, June 8th. And if you're listening to this after Monday, June 8th, you can actually join us. Probably not at any time, but at any time, because the sessions are recorded. So it's 18-week container, 18 chapters, 18 weeks. So if you are looking to more deeply understand the teachings of Krishna and how they relate to the yogic path, the meditator's path, this immersion is for you. We're going to take the mystery out of this scripture and actually apply it over 4 months this summer. So that starts next week. Please join. And then this summer, we have our retreat in Norway, September 17th. Not really summer, but if you're thinking about joining from Europe, please do, September 17th in the majestic mountains at the Newson Yoga Hotel. It's such an extraordinary venue, such a beautiful place. Get on the newsletter, join the Patreon community. the Patreon community is where it's at. We have our monthly satsangs, starting a monthly meditation and pranayama this month, and just like a beautiful group of people who love this podcast. So lots of ways to stay connected this summer. And if none of that suits you, I'd love to just hear from you. Hear an email. What episodes light you up? What's inspiring your practice? Reach out. That's why this podcast is here. It's to stay connected with other like-minded yogis. Good company. It's essential. So with that good company and all the lovely, beautiful souls listening, please find your steady and comfortable seat. Take a nice big breath. Get ready to embrace the mystery, the rhythm, the absolute joy of being fully alive with the one and only Dana Flynn. So I'm just going to start by welcoming you, Dana, to a Curious Yogi podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
Fun.
Yeah,
From
and when
LA to India.
I know, and like from the seaside to the mountains, like we couldn't be farther apart, but here we are connecting. I love it.
And you experienced me in India. We were cosmically linked
Yeah,
to the
exactly. Like,
International Yoga Festival.
yes. So just for the listeners, I connected with you, Dana. I didn't introduce myself or meet you there, but as I said to you in the message that I sent you, you made such an impact on me. I had just finished my 200-hour teacher training, and I was so inspired by your spirit and your authenticity and your energy. And so it's just like feels wonderful now. It's more than 6 years later to just get to spend a little bit of time with you. So I'm super excited to just be with you right now. Thank you.
It's wild when you say 6 years. It's like, huh? What? I got probably you too. I got back from uh, the yoga festival in Rishikesh, and it was lockdown. It was March 2020. I must have flown back like March 6th or 8th. And I think both New York City and New Orleans, where I was both, shut down by like St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah. It was a crazy time. I'm so glad we're out of that space now. So I love with these podcasts to just be spontaneous. And I love what you said in your email about sharing, just connecting over our shared passion of waking up. And I
Mm.
would love to just start with that, with your story of waking up and who you are, and for the listeners, like that's just such an inspiration for those that are listening that are attracted to waking up. Like where does that journey been like for you?
It's been very gradual, slow, and interesting, and filled with definitely not a straight line, filled with 99 curves on the road uh, that have kept me showing up no matter what. I think that's the mantra: keep showing up no matter what. I owned a bar called Trixie's, and I didn't really know that I got sober in my third year owning Trixie's, and Trixie's was this huge hit. And I was in Hell's Kitchen on 47th Street in New York City, right off Times Square. And all of a sudden, overnight, the club and and me were like Today Show, Good Morning America. I became a roving reporter on MTV, and uh, life. I had been a stockbroker at 22, and then I had this idea for this place, and I opened it by the time I was 25, and then I got sober, clean and sober. I had just turned 28 because I had had my birthday in August. I'm a Leo.
Me too.
Oh, sweet. Are you a July or August Leo?
August.
Same.
August 13th.
August 13th. August 13th.
No way.
Yes.
That's amazing. I love that.
That that is so rare.
That's so random. Well, maybe not random.
So not at all. God's way of
Beautiful.
remaining anonymous, right?
Yes, 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 yes. Love
Yeah.
it. Okay, so you
Um,
just turned 28.
yeah, and I was like, "Oh my God." I kind of woke up. That was my first waking up. Um, I don't think I always knew that because I had all this energy and all this excitement about creating and being a creative being. I didn't recognize that I might have had depression or anxiety because I was so full throttle. That's the thing that yoga really gave me was direction and focus and structure and discipline. Certainly this project of opening up Trixie's, it was called Trixie's, and Trixie was my nickname. And so I got clean and sober about 3 years into owning the joint. And I felt like that was the beginning of my seeking. Why am I here? What's it all about, really? What is meaning to me? How can I connect with purpose? I had been going so quickly. I went to Cornell and out of school and trying to make something big happen. I was very moved by wanting something fabulous and outrageous, and Trixie's was definitely that. And yet, Bobby, I was expressing like a small part of who I was that became personified. Like this
Mm,
party girl, this animated lover of life was like, you're getting that expression like with the volume turned up. And it really, I didn't meet the other parts of myself or like a more wholeheartedly expression of myself because that seemed to work for me. So I just
mm,
went with that. And then when I stopped drinking and using, it was like almost like this part thawing out process, like meeting myself for the first time. And still I feel like, oh my God, so many things about so many things. And I know so little about myself. Like, isn't that what waking up is all about? Even Ruby reminds us, right? Don't go back to sleep. Don't go back to sleep. And what does that mean for you, yogis? You can ask yourself that. It's easy to numb out, to check out, uh, to feel like you're not in the mood to be accountable or be rigorously honest with yourself. And I mean, the path of truth is about living truly. So I would say that this thawing, gradual process was like, wow. Like I'm just seeing the world in a new way. I mean, it wasn't totally Wizard of Oz where the color suddenly came on from black and white. And yet there was something that was so like I never heard the words chakra. I mean, I had a sense of karma and chakras, but all of a sudden I'm hearing Kundalini and pranayama and samadhi and sahasra and vishuddha. And I have the third eye and I want to have a spiritual relationship in the world. I want to have a spiritual awakening. That has always been my longing. But the search started those first steps. I didn't go like, well, did I kind of run into my first yoga class? There was a man with a long beard, long hair and a long beard. It was Sachidananda, and his picture was there, so that had a certain feel to it that might not be as universal to me today, or I might not connect with sort of making someone the head or the guru. And yet his wisdom was incredible, and he came here because he met Peter Max, the great, wild, beautiful artist Peter Max. It's a longer story, but they met in Paris, and he was invited back to be at Woodstock and share meditation. And so there's a great story around that. Um, so I walked in and it was like chanting, Loka, Samastad, or, we're closing our eyes. It's on a carpet. I mean, this is a long time ago. There weren't a lot of yoga studios. So this curiosity, like your podcast, I was like, wow, now look at this. Oh, wow. Now listen to this. Oh, wow. Now see this. Now experience this. I just had to keep going. I just was like, okay, keep going with this, And oh, what's very interesting? So when I was a stockbroker and I had this idea for Trixie's, and I left being a stockbroker to open up the place. Everyone was like, "Oh yeah, she was a she burnt out and she went and opened up this bar." And then when I left the club bar Trixie's and I got into yoga, they're like, "Oh yeah, she burned out and became a yogi." Like who would ever? I mean, we don't give a, it doesn't matter what other people think of us, but it's just
Hmm.
funny to notice, like, oh, yeah, she was a stockbroker. She became a restaurateur. She burnt out. Oh, she was a restaurateur, and then she burnt out and became a yogi. I'm like, great.
Yeah.
Great. My karma is burnt. It's burning. It's sizzling. It's moving me in a new direction. What is this direction? And then since you are currently sitting in India, I leaped around. So I went from a couple different of these yoga centers that were not like studios back then. And then I found my way to Jivamukti. And then I knew I had to go to the source. I had to go to India. I was like, and the teachings, I love the teachings. My something about the chanting was the first thing I felt like that really quieted my mind, even though I was chanting Om Namah Shivaya or chanting and making the sound, something about it allowed me to feel really divine, like that mood, that atmosphere of absorption, of like just wholeness after feeling so separate and my head's in one place and my feet are in another. All of a sudden I'm coming into myself more holistically, more grounded, more centered and open in my heart. And um so I went to India. I thought I'd go for a few months and I stayed for a year and met my teacher and practically lived with her like a gurukula where you study and you cook and you just like do absolutely everything you can to be the student and learn and be teachable. Um, there's a moment in Jack Kornfield's book, I don't know if it's called The Path of Heart, where he said he'd get so close to hit he'd get so close to the Rebbe, the rabbi, to see how he tied his shoelaces. And that's how I felt. I was like,
Hmm.
how do you tie, like, how do you do everything? And then you have to explore it for yourself. But like, when you're learning, you're going to imitate before you innovate.
Hmm.
You're going to watch, you're going to witness, you're going to learn. And then once I digested things and felt more, like began to have my own relationship, whether it was with the postures, with the pranayama, with movement or stillness, mudras, mantras, experiencing all these offerings from this big umbrella of yoga. It's like, well, yoga can look like this and yoga can look like that. And some people got competitive. My yoga is better than your yoga. You're like, okay, whatever. I'd I'd like to experience ecstasy. Okay. Are you going to get competitive with ecstasy? I want to go from zero to this waking and feeling a part of and paying attention and being engaged. And it's so easy, of course, for any person, but I was easily distracted for most of my life, even though I was able to create places, create things. So having the heat or the tapas and having the discipline, so I'm both a disciple of the practices and I'm devoted. So am I like the devotional practices really brought me in, like the senses, you know, hearing the mantras, tasting them in my mouth, lighting of the incense, seeing something beautiful. Like that's what tantric is. It means to weave the physical with the spiritual, and so all the senses are delighted. And instead of some practices that like push away the senses. Um, and this is like a celebration of the senses
Mm.
as a way to get to feel intimate, intimate with the divine through the senses. And so that was a great turn on for me. Um, and teachers. I met Gita in India, and then later I would meet other teachers. And I remember meeting Eric Schiffman and like practically running over him. I took a class with him in LA, in fact, and I was lived most of my life in New York. Opened Laughing Lotus with my partner Jasmine in 1999, and we had it for 20 years. And so 1999, the Prince song, it seems like what, when, you know, and bef- before we had even opened it up, I remember meeting Eric and asking him, I don't even know how long I've been practicing for, because there is no yoga without the yogi. You know what I mean? It's like you can think your way into like, oh yeah, what's yoga like? But you have to have the direct experience of yoga, of practicing it. And so I asked him, like, how do you stay inspired? How do you keep showing up on your mat? Like that was my longing, Bobby. Like I want to keep showing up because not because I'm think the miracle is somewhere far away from me, but I knew that the magic was in the moment. I knew that every time I practice, I step into the magic. And yet it can elude me because I could be pulled all these other places. And so my longing was, I want to keep showing up. I want to have this experience that's a mystery,
Mm.
essentially. Hello, it's mysterious. How is it that I roll my mat out or uh, I was sharing some beautiful breath work with some friends in New Orleans the other day. And it's like, it's almost like the way they say, what is it like when you taste a mango? Like you could try to describe it, but you're gonna you're gonna have to eat into the mango and let the mango juice like drip down your elbows, you know?
Mm.
Um, so Eric, I went up to him and I was like, how do you keep practicing? How do you keep showing up? Because things that inspire you last week may not inspire you now. Like Jung says, sometimes you have to go halfway to meet inspiration. Maybe you have to go all the way to meet inspiration. It's not like always going to land on your lap. But if
Mm.
you're willing to roll yourself out, you will be connected in that holy, sacred, spirited way. That is for me. That it's physical with a purpose. And the purpose for me is a spiritual.
Beautiful. Wow. Thank you. There was so much there. I love when you were expressing about when you met your teacher and well, actually so much. Like I can relate to so much of your story of just like so much, especially like being so involved in the world and from one thing to the other thing and then having that the moment that you can say that sort of initiates that waking up, that deeper march into like this whole inner experience, which actually heightens the outer experience. And I loved what you said about when you met your teacher. And I can also relate to that in meeting my teacher, like wanting to see how he ties his shoelace and having that sort of you could say ideal in a sense until the knowledge starts to be digested and like lived inside. And it's like it's like such a power, like a kind of like secret power I feel that the yogi or like the seeker has, is to have all this like juicy knowledge sort of like everywhere, and it's like, give it to me, I want it all, I want it all, I want it all. To just be hungry for that, and how beautiful it is that we're all on this like individual journey, but it feels so universal, the one that is so hungry to have that knowledge inside for ourselves. And I just so appreciate the way that you have digested that universal knowledge and the way that you can express it in such a like way that feels like, again, like I can digest it also, like about rolling out the mat and just sort of each time when we practice, like how to roll out ourselves essentially to just keep reaching that height of ecstasy, even if sometimes it feels like life is coming so fast and hard, and the ecstasy is as if somewhere far away. Like when you like when I hear you express, you have so much joy and delight and enthusiasm, but it's like, how do you maintain that when the tapas is happening, when the like hard stuff comes?
Definitely breathe into it. I mean, I've recently I lost my mom, and my partner passed, which has been it'll I mean, it is life shaking, earth shattering, that kind of loss. And so I can just lie on the mat and there's nothing I need to do. The practice has become quieter and more intimate and more subtle. Like, yes, I have this physical body and I have this energetic body, and I have, as you say, this lived experience through this outer teacher that introduces me to this inner life, this inner world. And tapping it is by being present each moment. I mean, my mind can't wrap itself around the infinite. I say the infinite, I'm like, oh my God. Yeah. And and yet yogis know, like, we have the vehicle of the breath. And the only way to experience the infinite is in the moment. And the breath is going to bring me into the present to experience the infinite's not in the past, the infinite's not in the future. It's here. So I those moments of grief and crying, crying. Oh my God. I mean, nothing is more intimate than that. It's like crying out to God. I remember when Amma, the hugging saint, Amritanandamayi down in Kerala, in Walikal, southern India, she would say, crying to God, something like this, it stayed with me. Crying to God is like meditating for 5 minutes. It was something like that because we put it on a question on our Jasmine and I included it on our teacher training question, and we had a lot of questions. Now it's like MasterCard or Visa is the question, you know. But back then we had that question, and everybody would be like, "No, crying is not a meditation. Crying to God or crying, releasing, feeling, um, because you're not really, even the sutras don't address feelings. I mean, they talk about the obstacles. You can be lazy, you can be impatient, there's all the different obstacles, but it doesn't talk about how feelings come into play into our
Mm.
practice. I mean, are feelings real? And so the feeling of grief has been very real to me these last few months. I feel like crying. I mean, who am I crying to? Who is God? And so there are many people that are going to practice yoga that uh, don't have any relationship with God, and might not even like the word. Maybe it's the universe or higher power or the great mystery. Um, I have a friend that's called God, the great outdoors. Like nature, and like you're in the mountains there, or at the base of the mountains. And I went to Nepal and I climbed the Himalayas, and that was a whole other experience. And I was with Jasmine in at Amas on Christmas Day when the tsunami happened. Many years later in India, we were there for the tsunami. And the water left the ocean and came onto the land. I mean, it wasn't as hit as Thailand, but it was devastating. I mean, we didn't know if we were going to be alive. We didn't know how much water was coming on land, and we had to evacuate. Back then, she didn't have a bridge at the ashram. It was like boat by boat. People were getting into boats with no belongings, and we were evacuating. You know, it's like that story when someone's looking around and saying, "Where's God?" in these moments, and like God's like, "Well, I sent you a helicopter. I sent you a boat. What kind, what kind of sign are you looking for?"
Yeah.
You know, if the signs are there, and I don't always believe I'm taken care of. I don't always have that trust or faith, and yet here I am, curious about being given the breath. You know, like you come into the world with this inhale, and then what are you going to do with your breath? Since the yogis measure their life in breaths, what am I going to do now? You've been given the breath. What are you going to do with it? You're gonna, what's the quality of the life you want to live? Are you connected with living in aligned with your values? Do those change as you change through this process of transformation and waking up? Do you see things in a new light? Is your perspective changing? What does change mean for you? And how does the pain in our lives create change for us to uh, li- live into who we are, not who we think we are, but who we truly are?
Yeah. When you were speaking just now, I thought of something that I just read like a few days ago that my teacher said. He said that he gave this like writing. It said, "How I grew and with what suggestions." And at the very end, he said, "Keep God and death near to you in whatever way you know them. And it doesn't matter in whatever way you know them." And just like hearing you like speak about God in one hand and like what is God and its nature and it's this and that. And then also facing death and grief and disaster and like how we are kind of like we're doing and we're acting in the world, and the yogi is striving, or the seeker, the meditator, to hold that awareness of the breath and the the subtleness behind the breath. And like we're kind of feels like doing this dance, and sometimes it's like, wow, I'm getting the dance, and sometimes it's like, like you said, like I'm not trusting. Like it comes in these like oscillations of like making sense, and like I can hold these polarities of my experience with a little bit of grace and balance, and then inevitably something happens and it just sh- m- rattles everything up.
Well, we have an ego, right? So the early on, when you start practicing and you can't do something, you can't touch your toes and then you can touch your toes. You can't do crow pose and then all of a sudden you're balancing. So the ego likes that. The ego's like thrilled. Look, there's some spiritual pride in there, you know? And so I think the awareness is, for me, has been just slow because I was very attached to being able to feel like I'm progressing on the path. Look, I am making progress, and attached to that progress. There's a great article from Joel Kramer from back in the day, and then he talks about, and I relate to, uh, how the progress is very fast, and the physical posture world, which is the one that we can see, right? We're not able to see. I'm not able to see inside. Do have a sense of this big black hole that I've always felt I've had to fill, that something's missing, or there's some part of me that isn't, um, feeling a part of, but feeling apart from and separate from that sense of othering, um, that I begin to grow into this, the fullness of my heart or the wholeness of my being that feels fragmented. But along the way, my ego um, was very attached to that progress, seemingly postures. And then there's this plateau, this crazy plateau where there's no progress. You just kind of flatline for a long time. And I think that's where, not that you separate the yogis from the bogies, but that's where you see that's where you see a lot of people fall away, because if you are attached to that progress, here's this invitation to go inside. I mean, even a younger teacher, he's still timing himself like on a timer doing 5-minute wheels. And his teacher's like, meditate. Like all of these shapes, asana, pranayama, dharana, dhyana, you know, not that each step is like this is how it progressed. This is the movement of it in this direction. Everything's forming at the same time. Your meditation practice, your breathing practice, uh, all of them are often happening. But in this very physical world that we live in, the focus on yoga is the poses. So when those begin to not only plateau, there's an invitation, a huge divine invite to get curious. What are these aspects of yoga that I haven't met yet? This is the gross outer body. I can be turned on to all these things that I don't know. I don't know about the koshas. I don't know about the more subtle practices. And how could I then explore those? But then people, maybe they wander off. It doesn't matter what they do. But I have seen through obviously many years of showing up and teaching, how people fall away from the yoga practice. That I can't do chaturanga, or I can't do this anymore, or I'm not progressing, and it doesn't keep their attention in the same way. And see that part of the change in their practice is that there's something deeper that it is potentially opening for you and for your journey and the adventure that you're on, that your soul's evolution is saying, this is how your soul can evolve. The outer postures brought you into the awareness of yoga practices. So now here it is. The door is wide open. Step in through the threshold and meet yourself and meet the great mystery. Touch what's infinite through these timeless practices.
Hmm. I'm wondering, like, in all the years you've been practicing and, with your peers, and then, of course, teaching and having so many students and seeing the world of yoga change in a way, but also, like, again, I always somehow my mind, like, goes towards the polarities, or like the opposition in the world. And I guess because in my practice now, of course, I love the asanas, but I'm more attracted to the subtle practices. And I don't know if that's like a maturing of my own practice, or if it's like just where I am in my life, or that's just a part of, we go through phases in life. Sometimes we are more physical and like need that like tangible results, like you're saying, like the progress, you want to feel it in that way. And then there's those other times when actually the being inside longs for the stillness and the quiet and the inner aspects of yoga. Like in all these years, like, do you see that there is sort of these, like in the yoga world, we can say, or the world of spiritual seekers, it's like some are just, that's what the practice is for them, is this physical sort of wellness practice. And then for others, the asana, or the physical practice, is that doorway to then go somewhere deeper and beyond. And the asana loses not loses, but the importance, the priority on it becomes kind of less significant.
It's a very personal journey. I remember a teacher, I remember hearing, how blessed I am that what good karma. It sounds like a cliched thing to say. What good karma that yoga and I found each other in this lifetime. Not that like I went and found yoga. Yoga looked for me. We found each other on this visit in this lifetime
Mm.
that that this cosmic connection happened. Like it's easy. It would be easy to take that for granted. And if you want to just slice out the poses, you're going to get the poses. But if you want something more or something deeper or something more intimate or just something that is not the posture, you will be drawn to it. You will have that longing to experience yoga, this joining together, this bringing together, yoking. So that's going to be a very personal journey. And I do feel that, you can have an injury happen that has you question. I mean, I remember having a partner have an injury and break their finger, and they couldn't do their practice for a long time. And it was like really frustrating. And yet, doesn't it seem like, hmm, something else is being asked of you at this moment? And I don't know what I can see if I'm ready to see what I can see in the moment. Sometimes, learning is like, oh, that was the teaching. Oh, there it was.
Mm.
I couldn't see it in the moment. You've got the word seer, a rishi as a seer, someone who has seen the truth, meaning someone who has experienced the truth. And so, do you want to experience the truth? How do you relate to the truth? Is that what waking up means? That I want to know the truth? I want to experience the truth? That would be very personal. Like you said, if
Right.
it's a wellness journey, it may not be the spirit. The wellness, yes, is the body mind connection, is the body and mind. And you see more and more work with a somatic practice, the vagus nerve with rest and digest. And you're seeing more and more people, especially with our nervous systems, so tweaked and my own so dysregulated with not knowing in the world moment to moment what's going on. It's not like my nervous system can just separate itself from everything going on. You need different things at different times, right?
Right. Yeah. And like when I'm hearing you talk, it's also kind of reaffirming for me that like yoga is a lived practice. It's like once we start to see through that lens of a connection or a uniting or bringing together a higher awareness of that energy or whatever language we want to put on it, God or life or love, that energy that is within us, which we are accessing when we close our eyes, when we meditate, when we have those moments within. But then we open our eyes and we start to see the world through that lens of that connection. So then it's like yoga happens on the mat sometimes, but it also happens in life because it's a way of seeing the world. How would you say about that?
I think you have a little bit more to say about it yourself. I want to hear you explore that just a little bit more.
Well, I'm just like, because it feels like when one starts on the practice of yoga, like there is such an attraction to the philosophy and to the different limbs and to the way we can study yoga as something separate from our lives. But then the more that we, especially I find, sit through meditation and pranayama and like being in India, of course, it's such a like place where you feel this divinity or the essence of spirituality like in the air. You can almost like taste it. It's like fragrant. It's just like so inside of the way that life is lived here. And then we sort of go back to our Western countries where God is separate, or God is over there in the church or the
Mm,
synagogue or the mosque, and I'm just visiting there. Versus, I feel like even now, when after many years of practicing yoga, many years of meditating, it's like when we open our eyes and whatever is faced in front of us, it's like it's faced there because it's coming from that same space that we're accessing when we close our eyes and we unite with, we can say, God inside or higher consciousness. We open our eyes and whatever is coming is also coming from that space. So therefore it feels like, or it appears like, it's all yoga, because every situation that is happening is an opportunity for me to remember who I am inside, or it's an opportunity to go towards duality in a sense of contraction and conflict or feeling separate. Or can I use those unique situations, whether we call them bad or good or positive or negative, to like use them as a mirror to who's the one looking and experiencing this. That's where I feel like kind of my practice is right now, if that makes sense.
yes, yes, yes. The path finds you the minute you step on.
Mhm.
When you choose to step onto your personal path, the path meets you right there. So your teachings are going to be unique to you. What you need to learn in this lifetime are going to be unique to you. Sure, there will be universal themes for all of us. Um, it's interesting. Two things come up for me because, you have relationships in your life, and yoga is all about relationships, right? Even down to feeling your breath, down to spreading your baby toe. You're having relationships with parts of yourself maybe you've never had before. And then you have relationships with people. You experience a betrayal. You have a resentment, um, anger that you're having a hard time releasing, sadness that maybe, which is powerful, but also maybe it's just hijacking your joy in your life moment to moment. And you're having a really a hard time. Like you want to have whatever you're experiencing, but not like get stuck. Whether you have grief, but you just don't want to live inside your grief. You want to be able to work with all these things. So all of this real life things are happening. We get upset. We don't like the way things are. We want them to be different than the way they are. There's so much acceptance that has to happen. Um, and it's easy to get into the headspace, this or that. I don't believe like in right or wrong. I mean, I think even if we've done things that feel bad, it doesn't mean that we're bad people. I mean, this is the learning. The other thing that stands out to me, in addition to being human, which is the most divine, the more human we are, the more divine. Because we honoring the different things that we learn in these relationships and what comes up for us. And a yogi over time knows, hey, I don't want to hold on to a resentment. I don't want to live with fear. Like Hafez says, hey, fear is the cheapest room in the house. I'd like to see you living in better conditions,
Yeah,
like,
that's good.
we live with fear or anger. And does that mean we're still on a path? Is this part of my path? Yes, we have to include it all. Everything is included. Your longing to know your highest self, along with your personal relationships that might be struggling in this moment, and you have to take a look at yourself. And I remember when I was in India and I was working with my teacher, and she wanted me to teach a lot of the local women. A lot of the women would come in. At the time that I went to India, it was very hard to find a yoga teacher, and I know that sounds really weird, but it would be yoga for diabetes, yoga for high blood pressure, VP, they called it. Yoga for your eyes. They had yoga for your eyes. And there was like all these ailments, and that was the way in. This is not like a touristy yoga town, like sort of Rishikesh, where it's become a tourist business, which is its own thing. It might turn people on that haven't been turned on to the practices. That's a beautiful thing. And that was the way in. So a lot of these women came to yoga because they wanted to reduce, as they called it. I need to reduce. They wanted to lose weight. So they came to the practices. Now, what was very, very painful, and this is not a surprise to you, in all the intoxicating pujas and aritis and rituals, and the beautiful way that ritual ignites the senses, as I was mentioning earlier, delighting in the senses as a way to connect with your yoga life. But that these women would come in and they would cover up the bruises on their face with makeup. And their husband might be out there doing a puja at the door. And that
Mhm.
environment can be beautiful, but we don't always see, we don't necessarily know. Not that I'm looking into injustices done to people, but these women were really struggling. And over time, as we developed a rapport and a relationship, they opened up to me. And of course, they didn't want other women to know that they were being violated in their own home. It was a huge secret. And that's true of every culture, but it is that you mentioned the polarities. It is that twist of these beautiful practices going on, and in the home the women are being beaten or experiencing something other than beauty and truth and uh feeling connected to the divine. I mean, there was a whole campaign that was done many years ago, and you can look it up. It's very powerful, and it's a picture of. It's in the Hindu world of yoga. It's all the goddesses. It's Lakshmi with bruises on her face. It's Durga. It's all the different. It's Kali, and it shows them with like marks, and to bring attention to a lot of what was happening, like the way women. And I know we're going in a different direction, but how it's not like India is the answer. Is all I'm saying. It's like
Mhm.
there's the beauty and there's the horror. And that beautiful campaign, I mean, that painful campaign was trying to bring out how, women are burned for their dowry and killed. And a lot of the behaviors were there's so much beauty and so much intoxication, and there's so much horror. Like India
Mhm.
has the highest infanticide rate of any country.
Mhm.
They kill their baby girls. When they find out they have a girl, they all want baby boys. It's called infanticide. And
Mhm.
so it's not like we're creating like that India is the bliss place, but there is a lot that is blissful and inspiring and a powerful way to feel like these are the practices I want to keep taking a step toward. I want to go in this direction because this is what's pulling me, that the longing for God is God. The longing for love is love. That longing, it's like in a Mirabai poem when Mirabai has been with her lover Krishna all night. And we know that feeling. We've been with our lover, and in the morning they leave. And we've had this experience of ecstasy and oneness and union, and they're gone. So we long. That's what longing is. You're longing to reunite with that lover. That longing is bhakti, that longing is why probably we do anything or go anywhere, or the choices that we make, because you have that longing and you're following it like a sacred thread, like the droppings from above that are saying, hey, keep, you're this is the treasure that you're seeking.
Mhm.
Um, until you realize that you are the treasure, that you're sitting on the treasure.
Yeah. Like little bit before you said something like this black hole inside that wants to be filled. And when you said that, I could relate to that. And then also now relating to that sense of longing to fill that, not with the things or people or situations or substances perhaps that at one point I did sort of when I was searching for that relative freedom, but actually now that the longing is that longing for God, and yet I have the awareness or the teachings which say, well, you are God, that is you, and yet something within me still longs for it and reaches for it and wants to know it and be it and live it. And yet the mind or the intellect has that awareness that, but the teachings are showing, the teachers are showing or revealing that you are already that. And yet there's something within that still reaches for it, like Mirabai when she longs for Krishna after he leaves. And yet it's like, again, it's always this kind of like dance, like longing for something and yet having that awareness or that brief split second moment of realization that you are that, and then it's fleeting and gone, and then we long again. Is that just the dance of this life, of those moments of clarity, and then the doubt comes in, and then the clarity and the light shines in, and that's just what this whole dance is?
Well, that's what it's called the Leela, right? Like the dance.
Mhm.
I feel like I mean, I really relate to the dance, and I love dance and movement, and a big part of what I share is very that the movement is medicine for sure. But I think surrender has to come into surrendering to surrender to God's will. I mean, is so much surrender in a lot of the ritual practice of, like prostrating yourself. And I think that it is easy to be a spiritual casualty, to do all these practices and still feel like I've got this whole, like that's what the addict in me was. Like I was trying to fill it with, you know, uh, nothing was enough. I mean, that was like the underlying thing. Like nothing could fill this. It didn't matter how many drinks or how many people. Like there was something deeply. I mean, it could be the human makeup and the human dilemma of that, but especially I think for this recovering addict, there is this sense that never enough. I could do all these practices, and that's where I feel like surrendering my will to God's will and turning it over, that there's more acceptance. There's more, there's a quieter place to rest and to drop into where the longing becomes perhaps more satiated and peace and a serenity becomes less of the dance. That the dance will bring you to the surrender. It might not be surrendered always, but with more acceptance and more surrender, definitely more peace.
Kinda like when you're speaking, thinking of like a pendulum, how it swings one way and then it swings with equal or greater force the other way, and that life is still kind of swinging side to side, the highs and the lows, but that the practice and like you're saying, the surrender sort of helps that pendulum swing a little less intensely, and the dance becomes maybe a little more soft and uh less thick kind of, and yeah, and lighter, like not so heavy.
Stillness. Who's your teacher?
My teacher, his name is Swami Sham, and he's up here in northern India. He's passed now about 8 years ago, but
Mm,
I'm still here in his ashram.
I'm so happy you found a teacher for you on this visit. That's a special relationship.
Yeah, 3 years when he was in his body, and somehow the teachings when passed away, they've become even more alive for me and more inspiring and like definitely more curiosity and inspiration to keep on the path of self-inquiry and just who am I? Like, what is this all about? Because out in the world, it can feel really, mm, it's getting less confusing, but still confusing for me, definitely. So it's these teachings of yoga and oneness and God and love, it just so lights me up. So I also feel
Mm.
very thankful to be on this path, definitely.
It definitely it has given me direction. Like, I had all this energy, obviously I still do, but I wasn't really sure what to do with it or where it was going to go. And the practices that my sadhana has given me both form and direction and both freedom with the form. So there's form and formlessness, there's structure and freedom. And I love that. Because
Mm,
without the structure, without the discipline, without a daily practice, I could return to the whole at any moment. The whole
yeah.
might become appealing, because low self-esteem or the sense of not enoughness or the negative self-speak, future tripping, these are just the way the mind is wired. It's not like I have that unique thing with my mind. My mind can fall in that space of wanting to figure it all out and can overwhelm could happen I can get overwhelmed and then
Mm-hmm.
be in that overwhelm and I have to take like Dana body mind and spirit and like steer like hey, give me the strength I need, give me the focus, like pray for the focus, pray for the strength to go to my mat if that's my place, or go to the edge of the river, or go where I can draw the mind into my heart and
Mm-hmm.
have this quality of returning, like to awaken that memory of who I am. Not all those things, though that's true that they're there and I can bear witness to them. But that's not my essence. I might have problems in my life, but that's not who I am. I might have difficulties, but that's not who I am. But if I identify with my problems and my difficulties, they become very large. So yoga is saying, hey, you have a way that all these things are going on. You can take refuge in these practices. Let them guide you. Let them hold hands with these practices, and they will give you the courage to keep going on your path, one step, one breath at a time.
Mm. I loved what you said. Draw the mind into the heart. It's like you can't, because I have a tendency with my mind to like I want to get it right. I'm gonna be a good yoga. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that. Actually, but like drawing the mind into the heart is like it's an absorption, it's a returning, like you said, it's a memory, remembering. It's not something that's forced or done, it's a happening or an allowing, and it's a softening, and it just sort of makes me like exhale and kind of like, like everything is fine. It's okay. Yeah. I have loved talking with you, Dana. I feel like I could talk to you for like another whole hour or plus. It's so amazing. You're so inspiring. I love the way that you express, and you're just so sincere and genuine. And I just really appreciate you. I have one last question that I like to ask the guests, and that's just at this point in your sadhana, in your life, in your practice, what are you still curious about?
Relationship, people, connecting, curious about their lives. Yesterday, I connected with my friend Meg in New Orleans, and she had a friend there. I'm curious about the lives of the people in my life and what's moving them, what's difficult for them, how I can show up in that relationship. My friend Meg was there with her friend, And she said, "Is that okay?" I said, "That's wonderful." And I asked if there was anything in their mind or heart that day that they wanted to express. And my friend's friend said, "Yes, I wish peace for Meg." Had Mother's Days coming up, and her two sons were not speaking to her. And she said, "I wish peace for, this relationship with the mother and the sons." And so that was curious for me. Like, I think I'm going to teach yoga. I'm going to share something with them, or I've got something that I know. No, I don't know anything. I show up and they want to experience peace with their children, and to be receptive to, like, how can I best serve? How can I best serve you? How can I best serve you? How can I be present to serve who's right in front of me?
Oh, well, you've definitely been of great service to me today and major inspiration. And I know to all the folks listening. And how I refound you was through your Substack. So I would definitely suggest to all the listeners to subscribe to your Substack because it's amazing. But do you have any other ways that people can practice with you or get in touch with you, whether like virtually, online, or anybody that's listening that happens to be in California? Like, where can we find you?
Well, that's fun. I teach here in LA at Light on Lotus. It's easy to find. I'm going to be doing some filming with Yoga Renew. It's an online platform. So you can find me there. And Dana Trixie Flynn on Instagram, which is a longer story. With the Trixie was the name of the bar. So when Facebook first started a million years ago, people called me Trixie. So I put Dana Trixie Flynn. And then I started ocean swimming when I lost all my yoga centers with COVID. They all shut down. I was grief stricken, another grief stricken moment in life, really at a loss. And I took to the ocean and started swimming. So my Substack is Dana Ocean Swim, and just the different ways we swim through the deep and how we get through these things. And to live with all our heart, whatever's going on, to live with all my heart, to live with all your
Mm, beautiful. Do you ever do like teacher trainings or retreats or anything where we can travel to practice with you, or what do you do that?
Yeah, you'll see that on my Instagram for sure. Upcoming
Mm-hmm.
retreats and gatherings.
Beautiful.
You're
Well,
invited.
I hope to find you somewhere in this big wide world once again. Somehow, by fate, my August 13th, Dana, you were there in Rishikesh, and it's cool to have this time together. I really, really, really appreciate it. It's super, super cool and really inspiring.
Thank you, Bobby. Thank you, yogis. Keep
Awesome. So I miss
going. Keep going.
keep swimming. We can do it.
Keep swimming. Yes.
Thanks for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed what you heard, please consider supporting the show at patreon.com/A Curious Yogi Podcast. And please leave a review. It really helps the show reach more people. Let's stay curious, connected, and keep walking the path together. In total delight, this is Bobby signing off until next time.